guys, it is our privilege, our honor to bring up on stage, okay, as Arun mentioned, Harvard graduate, professor of marketing at the University of Chicago at Illinois, and really the primary advocate and believer and proponent of network marketing in the academic world, no other than Dr. Charles King. Let's give him a loud Beacon welcome.
You know you wanna sing with us. That's why you know you should be scared of us. Let's try, looks to kill. Straight talk, sex appeal. One touch gives me chills, and we ain't even close yet. Rough neck all around, ain't been all over town. Show me how you get down, 'cause we ain't even close yet. And you got me feeling. Listen as I speak, 'cause I'm careful as a creep. You got me going crazy, and you know I can't sleep. The watch in your moves, and you hypnotize me. You got me trembling like a little baby girl. You're so special, you're like diamonds and pearls. You got me spinning, and you got me in a twirl. You're my number one baby, and you're about to rock my world. You're dangerous, just get it up. The way you move, so scandalous.
Let's go get it. I am honored to be your speaker at VCon Indonesia 2012. I am very impressed with this company. I am very impressed. I'm very impressed with the industry and the role that you're playing in this enormously developing world of the Asian African market is virtually irreplaceable. You can be the leader of the world from this posture. I come to you as a college professor with 20 years of experience in researching the network marketing industry. I've been very aggressive about it. I've worked hard to figure out what the industry is about, so I want to come to you with several points of view. Number one, I want to be a research professor who has studied the industry for 20 years. Number two, I want to talk to you as an educator who has spent 20 years teaching people about network marketing. Number three, I want to turn back and talk to you about the latest developments in the industry. And lastly, I want to emphasize where you stand long-term in terms of opportunity. Now, with that overview, I want to again confess I'm an evangelist about the power of network marketing as an economic model, and secondly, as a vehicle for starting your own economic freedom base. It is a wonderful opportunity, particularly for people in the developing world. So with that, let's go to the presentation. My theme is that I want to emphasize your belief system in the network marketing industry on the one side, and secondly, in the profession on the other. Now with that, I have a central theme. My first slide, the central theme. I want to emphasize the theme that says, central theme, in decade 2013 to 2023, network marketing is going to be a rage and will build on the age of information, age of knowledge. Now, from my perspective, the age of knowledge is built around several dimensions. Let's see the dimensions. I want to organize the facts around these things. Number one, you have a fundamental history of the industry and the industry structure. Number two, you have a belief system about the process of network marketing, how you do it. Number three, you have a passion you feel for a particular product category, which you represent. And lastly, you have a company with the company power and structure. So we use information from all of those basic issues and organizations. Now, let's back to the issue. The fundamental thing I'm going to talk about will be where you are in the industry and how we draw from this body of knowledge into your application day to day. Now, I've organized a program around several topics. Number one, I want to talk about the changing decade of 2013 to 2023. The notion being that this is going to be a decade of dramatic change, and I think we should capitalize on that opportunity. Number two, I want to turn and talk about the direction I see the industry going in terms of entrepreneurism. We're seeing more and more home-based businesses developing, and this is a great opportunity for developing countries. Number three, I want to turn and talk about what I consider to be the most important opportunities for QNet. And lastly, I want to talk about what I think QNet's position is as of 2013 going forward into 2023. Now that is basically the outline. So let's go to the first slide, dealing with stats. Notice the numbers. We're talking about some dramatically impacting numbers that all of you should internalize. Now, a point. I want you to casually walk through this information with me. I do not want you trying to memorize it. I don't want you to try to take notes about it. You can download the entire presentation from the web. It's available to you. So merely walk with me through these concepts. We'll discuss them one at a time. Now, looking at the numbers are impressive. We're talking about a substantial industry of $153 billion in retail sales, representing 91 million network marketing practitioners or independent representatives. And that's growing dramatically over time. We have roughly 21 countries doing over $1 billion a year. That gives us an industry perspective. What do I expect you to do with that? Recognize that this is a powerful economic engine, and you are building on something that has momentum and can take you to the next generation of prosperity, success, and organizational development in the developing world. Now, let's turn to the next slide. Now, what I'm doing here is listing off the major countries. I don't expect you to try to memorize that. 2 or 3 conclusions. Number one, this set represents the top set of the $21 billion countries. And what I want you to look at is the United States dominates with approximately, what's our number? 29 million in terms of volume, and roughly 15 in terms of operational network marketing practitioners. Now, what I would like to do, can we move my chair, please? Can you move my chair? I'm sorry, this is a failure. Someone move it. Put it over on the side. Over here. That's fine. Turn it to the audience. Place the audience, please. Turn it around this way. Thank you. Now, I'm much more comfortable once I get seated. Okay. Now, ready to roll. That's great. Okay, we're in control. Let's go now back to the numbers. The United States at 29.9 billion. Understand B versus M, with 15 million people in the United States. When you look at the United States and Japan, those 2 countries represent about 35% of industry sales. Then we look at the other companies in that region. We're talking about 6 countries with the dominant share. Let's go to the next slide. These are the companies as they progress down. This is the billion-dollar club. All of these countries do at least $1 billion a year. Next slide. And now we drop, continuing adding smaller countries over time. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, he gets to Indonesia. No, come back, please. Come back. Notice the summary again, $153 billion worldwide with 91.5 million people involved as distributors. Now again, the summary. The United States and Japan dominate the countries, not yet. Come back. The United States and Japan dominate the countries, and they are essentially 35%. 21 countries do over $1 billion, and this is the total number. Now, what do I think you should do with this? Number one, I think you should be able to articulate to anyone asking about the industry, these are facts, the most documented information, most current, available from the World Foundation of Direct Selling Associations, the source of information. So anyone who asks you whether this is a home-based business out of the back of a trunk, this is a powerful economic engine about which you can speak with confidence to build your belief system. Now let's go to the next slide. In terms of relative power, Donna Empson and I went through this in some detail, and I said, this is what the industry structure looks like, sales by region. And we see, if you put Asia and Africa together, you're talking about the dominant sector in the world in terms of volume and certainly in terms of growth. Now, something to look at. Ask your question, what is the most powerful region in the world for network marketing today? It's clearly in Asia, with Africa behind it. That's your country, that's your world, that's your region, that's your economic area for development. In terms of numbers of people, we aren't sure because we don't have information from Africa, but we do have clear information that 51% of all networkers come from the Asian culture in Asia. So that says the power of the industry is located here. Next point. Next slide. As we leave that one, I want to ask two questions. Where are you strong relative to the strengths of the industry? We'll come back to that. Now let's look at the next question I want to drive, and that is a simple one, that there is a movement afoot across the world for developing entrepreneurial directions. More and more entrepreneurs are being born and enter the workforce every year than the previous year. Point being, we are in an age of uncertainty. What does that mean? That says that look around us. We have unemployment. In the United States, our unemployment is 8.3%. In fact, if you look at all the people who are unemployed and are no longer looking for work because they've been disappointed at not finding any, that number is probably more like 23%. In fact, if you look in Asia, you have a similar kind of ragged edge economy situation. A lot of unemployment, a lot of young people without work, a lot of young people undereducated or overeducated for their workforces. Same case in the United States. Students graduating from my classes this year wait 6 months before they get a job. When they get a job, it probably won't be in the major of their choice. They will live in that job for 3 years before they're fired, meaning the next recession forces another drop in employment. People get unemployed again. The first people to be fired are the last persons hired. Last in, first out. That applies worldwide. So the end result is a lot of instability. Is that the reality? The point is that instability says we must do something for ourselves. We can't depend on corporate America or corporate Asia or corporate Africa. Those people are no longer dependable for our individual survival. So the trend is across the world that we should develop our own economic independence as entrepreneurs. Next slide, please. Now, the central theme here, what is an entrepreneur? The word entrepreneur comes from French, means, I believe, to entreprendre. That means to undertake. Now, pause for a second. To undertake means to develop your own style of home-based business. The objective being that for each of you, you may have a different kind of home-based business choice. Each of us should search for our passions, our interests, our abilities, and by all means accomplish and develop ourselves toward those objectives. Now let's turn to the next slide. The next slide simply says, what is a home-based business? And that says a business that is fundamentally done from the home, from the residence of the business owner. More and more people are taking the home-based business central. A lot of independent statistics have been gathered about that concept from the United States. Next slide. Now, these are United States-based numbers, but the similar kinds of statistics, I think, apply for the rest of the world, particularly your marketplaces. Number one, in the United States, we're talking about $427 billion a year through entrepreneurial ventures, home-based businesses. Number two, we're talking about roughly 34 to 36 million home-based businesses in operation. Number three, we're talking about, that number is staggering, 8,500 home-based businesses being created on an ongoing basis, with a new middle class developing from that. Now, for your purposes, coming forward, this is a great platform for building a middle class all across Asia, Africa, and the Arab world. Next slide, please. More numbers. The fact is that home-based businesses, if developed well and appropriately organized and managed, can succeed. The stats go, most home-based businesses last over 3 years versus less success for non-home-based businesses. Another point of view, over 50% of all families will have home-based businesses over the next decade. That's a reality, and interestingly enough, 50% of those home-based businesses will be college graduates, people who have been trained, well-educated, but simply are not able to find work and therefore take their employment search elsewhere. So that is a theme I want to take away, that the home-based business environment is real, is growing across America, and is growing across the world, particularly in the developing countries where unemployment is at least as bad as in the United States. Next slide. Now, there are various real advantages to the home-based business model. Simply stated, we're talking about your own time schedule. Secondly, we're talking about you can combine your family and your lifestyle and have your family involved in your home-based business. Many of you have your families involved in QNet. That's the point. You can have a home-based business including all your family, and in the United States, that home-based business model offers you about a $10,000 to a $15,000 tax deduction. Now, that will vary across different countries, different tax codes. But the point is, there clearly is a tax advantage for having a home-based business taking off tax operating deductions. And lastly, and the thing that I think is most important, that the home-based business model gives you a lot of self-independence and self-determination. The central theme, most home-based business entrepreneurs start there because they simply are unhappy or can't find work. Central theme. My experience in life has been that I can work with almost anyone. But earlier in my life, I found I could work for no one. I wanted to be an independent entrepreneur, and that's the reason I became a college professor, and I worked from that platform. I know that many of you in this room have those same concerns, those same passions for independence and self-development. The home-based business model is a place to do it with many advantages beyond these. Let's continue. In terms of the challenges, it is not a free ride, meaning home-based business success does not come easily. You must plan for it, you must develop skills of organization and management, and you must do it consistently over time. The central theme that the home-based business operator must be, in fact, a salesman, saleswoman, and be able to generate cash and cash flow. You must align yourself with an organization that can support that. QNet has the ideal package of products and content that you can sell to generate revenue. Now, you're going... Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Your in-service people are outstanding. They move... They move furniture, they deliver service water. I can't live without them. So please, let's keep that program in operation. The central conclusion from this slide is simple. The home-based business is not a free ride, meaning you have to work at it, you have to be disciplined, you have to develop business skills to be successful. The next slide is, I think, very relevant. My message: the network marketing business structure can provide you exactly the kind of training that's needed in the home-based business environment. So I strongly endorse the home-based business model marrying with network marketing, and particularly with the QNet program. I think it's fantastic and very successful. Central theme: a marriage of the movement internationally toward self-employment, toward home-based business, is directly linked to the growth of network marketing over the next decade. This is the ideal model to be in. Now is the time to move forward with maximum speed and power. Next slide. I want to talk about the rise of developing countries and what the potential is, in my opinion, for your opportunity. Next slide. Point one, let's talk about the annual growth in the United States. Many network marketing companies who are abroad think they should be moving to the United States to capitalize on American prosperity. Wrong decision. For this reason, the United States prosperity is waning. In fact, as you'll see, the notion of the rise of the rest tells the tale. The message is that the time of the Western economy is slowly moving out. That means we are losing our momentum in Japan, in Europe, in the United States. Despite the fact that we drove the economy after World War II for the last 50 years, the reality is that the power is shifting to the developing world. The United States growing at 2 to 3% a year, whereas in the global market, 10 to 15% annual growth is not uncommon. So compare our growth at the United States level, 2.2 to 3% versus 10 to 15. Clearly, you want to invest in developing countries. Next point, more and more United States companies are moving abroad. What does that say? That says if you want to be associated with an American company, you can be associated with an American company from a foreign address. That's probably the best model to maintain your independence in the developing world and cooperate with United States operations. The powers that be have changed direction. Number one, the United States after World War II was the superpower. And after the fall of Russia and the iron power there, we now have the United States as the dominant world figure. But that's changing. The United States is gradually one of several other powers. And those other powers include China, India, Brazil. The central theme is that we don't expect the West to fall. What we do expect is the rest of the world to rise to our level of success. You can be involved in that new growth. And further, over time, the direct selling environment, the network marketing world, has changed dramatically. As I talked to you earlier, the changing direction in global sales of network marketing companies is shifting. United States and Japan still dominate at 35%. But when you take the next step and look at the developing countries, they have the power for tomorrow. Let's look at this slide. This one is worth hanging time on. Watch it. Review it. Number one,